Good afternoon. It is a pleasure to have you again in one chapter of our conversations with mentors, or conversaciones con mentores, usually. Today is one of our very few sessions in English, but it is an honor to have our three participants today, and you will discover why in seconds. Then I want to invite our first participant. Hi, Dominique.
Hi, Rosario.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. So happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
No, it is our pleasure. Please tell the audience from where are you connecting today?
Today, I am calling from Brooklyn, New York.
Well, thank you. I'm asking because as we are building bridges between cities and places, it is very beautiful to know that today we have also different places connected to this call. Then thank you, Dom. I am inviting now Dev Tandon, please. Hi, Dev.
Hi, Rosario. Hi, Dominique.
How are you?
Good. Good to see you.
Great to see you too. Please tell the audience from where are you connecting today?
From San Ramon, California, Bay Area.
Okay, now we have the two coasts. And now I want to invite our third participant. Hi, Kiko.
Hello, how are you doing, guys?
Great. Well, please tell the people who from where are you connecting today?
Well, I should be connecting from Spain because I'm from Spain, but I'm connecting from Indianapolis, Indiana. So that's the Midwest.
Thank you. Well, now this is exactly a panel connecting areas of the world, visions, perspectives, and now I want to invite you to tell us who are you, please. Dominique, tell us who are you and what are you doing?
Yeah, happy to. I am a surfer and adventurer at heart, originally from France, and then arrived in New York via London, and then 8 years in Asia, a couple of years in Spain, and came here 8 years ago. I was working in international education for 17 years and ended up now working as director of coaching for Medley, a fantastic startup with focus on group coaching. And I'm also the founder of Group Coaching HQ, which is a training program for coaches who want to master the art of group coaching. So lots of coaching in my life, lots of happiness, and I'm also working on a book. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you, and we will ask more later on. Then, Dev, please tell the people who you are and what you are working on.
Sure. So who am I? It's kind of a loaded question. There's a lot of different answers that I can give to that. But from a business standpoint, I was in business for about in the business world, traditional business world, in consulting for about 20 years after graduating from college with a degree in computer science. And then about 2.5 years ago, I had, I'm sure we'll talk about this, a bit of an epiphany and left the corporate world and am now transitioning to work on a movement to really transform how we as a society do business. So that's who I am. And I would just, turn it back to you, Rosario.
Thank you. We will get deeper in some minutes. Then, Kiko, please tell the audience who you are and what you are doing.
Absolutely. Well, and thank you to you and this amazing group. I mean, I didn't travel as much as Dominique, but born and raised in Spain, I have been around for quite a while. I'm 54 years old. Worked in multinational companies, small businesses, non-profits, foundations. So I've been all over the place, which is a good place to be. I am currently an entrepreneur by choice, although sometimes it's not as fun as the title may sound. And I'm sure that we're going to discuss all that. Si hablo español, but I'm not going to do that tonight. So, looking forward to being with you. And hopefully we're going to explore our lives more in context.
Thank you, Kiko. Well, when we were thinking how to develop this panel, Felipe and I were thinking, well, people who can really have different entrepreneurial lives. And I want to ask you, and maybe in the same order, if you are agreeing, how has entrepreneurship been for you? I mean, from the experience, from the reality of the things, and the beauty and the not that much beauty thing of being an entrepreneur. Dominique, please.
For me, it's been a step into a new identity. It's been a complete change of who I am and how I have functioned my whole life. Having worked in education, even though I was working in international schools and constantly adapting to new environment, new countries, I was still in a very sheltered environment of a school. And coming into entrepreneurship, I left my work in a school here in New York 4 years after I arrived. I jumped into building a coaching practice, building a company with no network, no connections, no people, no nothing. And I made all the mistakes that you can make, and learned very, very fast that connections were incredibly important. And how has it been? It's been hard. It's been I'd say the first couple of years were really, really hard, to the point of, really thinking about building finding another job and going back to education and letting it all go because it was so difficult. And then thanks to people like you, Rosario, and fantastic groups that I've met, I learned and I grew, and I realized that I had so much to offer to the world, and that with building teams and working with people who were just who were just incredibly inspiring to me, I could actually build something of value. And that's what I mean by stepping into a new identity. It was from being a teacher, an educator, a leader in schools, to really becoming an entrepreneur. It's taken me a while. I am still learning a ton, and it's a beautiful journey.
Thank you.
More on the hardships later.
No, thank you. I think you are mentioning some topics that for sure for people who is hearing us are completely aligned with their journeys. I mean, building businesses, creating businesses, and impacting communities is not always easy, and is not always profitable. And I would love to jump into that. Deb, how has been that story for you?
Yeah, so I would say the first 20 years of my entrepreneurial career were pretty miserable, pretty unhappy. I started really young. I worked out of college at McKinsey for 2 years. And then after that, I started my own consulting company that I ran for the next, 18 years or so. But the reason I discovered afterward why they were so miserable is because my focus in those 18 years was purely external, right? It was all on external things. I need to grow my business to a certain amount of revenue, a certain number of employees, a certain number of profitability to feel good about myself, right? And so that was what caused actually the misery. And then I mentioned a couple of years ago when I kind of had an epiphany, and I just kind of woke up and said, you know what? None of this stuff actually matters. That's not why I should be doing, for me, right? Why I should be approaching, and doing entrepreneurship. The entrepreneurship is for me to reconnect with the deepest part of myself so I can come out of misery and be in peace no matter what is going on in my life, whether the revenues are going up, whether the revenues are going down, whether the employees are going up, all that stuff, all those external metrics that we're trained to say that's what success is. When in reality, I discovered that success is truly just being at complete peace, no matter what's going on outside of us that we can't control. So my journey has been kind of a tale of two cities, and I'm much happier now. Definitely this is the city that I'm in, because I just realized that, hey, we do the best that we can in this world of entrepreneurship. We proceed with right volition. We take right action. And then after that, the third thing that comes from that volition and action is an outcome that we cannot control. The outcome comes to us, right? Based on the volition and the action that we take. And so we surrender, right, to whatever that outcome is. And so it's been a learning process for me, and it's continues to be a learning process. And I'm excited to see what more it'll bring in the coming years.
Well, for sure, you are giving us some elements that we will take in the next questions, because of course, this context of volition and being the correct path is not necessarily giving us the path, the outcome that we were expecting. But we will take this a little bit later. Kiko, please tell us, how was your journey?
Yep, thank you. By the way, beautifully said, both of my colleagues. experience was a little different. So I came out of college in Spain and I started my own company right away. I learned a lot of things, made a lot of mistakes, but I was in my 20s. Then I joined a big multinational and started like a multinational career, if you want. And I have always been very comfortable starting things, even in the context of those companies. So I was more of an intrapreneur than an entrepreneur for many, many years of my career. Then there comes a time when I have to start again, like when I came to the US for the first time. I was married at the time, so it was interesting for me. I had to just apply for the green card, and now I've been able to work in theory. So I started helping my brother bring his academy. He teaches law in Spain online from the US. And so we started this kind of exploration again. And then while I was helping my brother with that, I started doing some of the things that failed miserably. You know, I had a provisional patent for something called NetPrinter that was supposed to be kind of the latest invention on earth. And it failed on its nose because, you know, technology caught up with me real quick. It was kind of a language interpretation device and things like that. So then I got back into the traditional job idea, but in a different sector with a private foundation. And then after my tenure there and my tenure at a couple of other places, then I decided to restart my career of entrepreneur. So I've been like up and down and up and down. And I can't complain about my tenure at these large corporations because I learned a lot, right? Without them, I wouldn't have traveled the world or things of that nature. But now, and I think my colleagues have said it beautifully, it's a time where you can give back, you can explore yourself, and the purpose and the values are yours. You don't have to embrace anybody else's purpose and values, which we have done many times when you work for corporations, right? So now it's the time to do it. But in pure great English, it sucks, man. It's difficult. It's hard. Every day you wake up and you say, well, now I have to do business development, or maybe I have to do some billing, or maybe I have to do. So it's really, really tough. But at the end of the day, the satisfaction of being yourself and creating something around who you are is just simply amazing. So I hope that we can tackle the idea of legacy, because I have so many things to talk about.
You know, I am sure, and let me tell you that we selected each conversation with the correct people because we thought this will contribute a lot for the audience, and we'll give them different perspectives of the things. Then, but different perspectives aligned with some values, and this is basically what you were mentioning, and Deb and Dominique, because if something is common here is that we want to build something for good together, not alone, creating a community. And then from there, I want to jump into 3 terms that I want to ask you to help me to clarify. The first term is purpose. The second one is values. And the third one is the famous legacy word. Then I would like to jump into this conversation of how to know what is what, which one is what, and how to define that when you are an entrepreneur. Then Dominique, please, or if anybody wants to change the order, just jump on it.
Rosario, can you tell me what the first word was?
Yes,
you mentioned?
Values, purpose, and legacy. Deb, please, go ahead.
Unmute. Okay. Yeah, so purpose is actually very interesting. There's a lot of discussion today around the world about purpose in companies, and companies are getting very, it's like a hot word now, right? And one of the things I've noticed is that the discussion that I've seen is really all around, again, external purpose, right? Like, what is our external purpose in the world? It's to create a sustainable business. It's to, whatever, right? Serve underprivileged areas right around the world. But there's also an internal purpose that each one of us has, right? And that's to come out of suffering, basically, right? Every human being comes into this world suffering, crying, right? And, you know, I mean, life is hard, right? I mean, as Dr. Kiko mentioned, right? So, you know, this internal purpose is really not discussed at all. And so what I always encourage folks to think about, right, when we talk about purpose is, yes, it's really good to talk about, I'm here on this earth to go serve, you know, underprivileged areas of the United States. Okay, that's my external purpose. But I also have this internal purpose, right, which is to transcend everything that has been holding me back in my life, right, which are the things that cause misery. So this distinction, right, between internal and external, I think most of the discussion that's happening right now is all around external. And if we only focus on the external, then you could be doing amazing external work and have an amazing external purpose, but still be miserable on the inside, which is not the goal. Because then if you can, right, transcend the misery on the inside, then what happens is this work that you're doing on the outside becomes far more effective.
Thank you. I love that you are bringing this into the conversation. Dominique, please.
I was just going to absolutely agree with that and add that I think we talk about purpose in the same way often as we talk about values. And I think there's that sense of personal values that's also so important. And so those two words to me often feel very abstract. And the way that you talk about purpose there really resonates with me in that we all shared, all three of us, how much of a internal change we've had to make in order to become the person that we are today. And I just wanted to highlight that. I think often when we think about legacy, when we think about what we're leaving behind, you're so right. We think about, well, what am I sharing? What am I giving to the world? How am I changing the world? But truly, if we change ourselves, then we are changing the world. So I
love that. Completely agree. Kiko, do you want to add there?
Yeah, well, maybe you just opened a Pandora's box, because my entire PhD, as you know, my dissertation was about wisdom, and for me, I do believe that people come equipped to this world to be wise eventually, and that at the end of the day is to flourish as humans, ourselves and others around us. So I always use the same metaphors. You know, you put your oxygen mask first before you can help someone else. And it's true. Now, when it comes down to legacy, legacy is an interesting term also, because it's hard to, you know, when you invited us and you said, okay, well, let's talk about entrepreneurship and legacy. I said, well, that's the best way to leave a legacy. Entrepreneurship is the best way to leave a legacy. There's no question in my mind. Now, you can think of legacy in a kind of a legal term, right? Someone is going to inherit my business, and that's fine. It's also a type of legacy. But at the same time, it's this ability to just leave your mark in the world. However, I would say the best thing in entrepreneurship, in my opinion, is that, you know, we all subconsciously aspire to some level of immortality, right? It's like, you know we're going to die. We're going to go back to the suffering, death. But this idea of the fountain of youth, right, has been always pursuing humans, right? Entrepreneurship for me is a fountain of youth. It's an ability to recreate, to just find this youth in yourself and helping others. So maybe just because at the end of the day, I'm just a teacher, and that's what I love doing, and that's what my parents were. But, you know, legacy, come on, start a business. Absolutely.
Thank you, Kiko. And well, you were telling things about the legacy and creating a business, and Deb was mentioning that impact from inside, and that resonates with me, because when we were starting this incubator, and well, you all know that because you saw this story and these journeys from very close. We started because of what made us happy was seeing these entrepreneurs not closing their businesses. That was the main motivation when we started. For sure, we need to make this sustainable and so forth and so forth. And now it is starting to happen. But going back to that eternal, how do you call that, the fountain of eternal youth, how do you see that legacy in practical terms? I mean, why this matter to each of you, and how do you think an entrepreneur who is seeing this live can start thinking around that, both from the internal aspect? Because I really think, I mean, Felipe and I are really happy doing this every day, creating what we are creating every day, and of course sharing with people like you. This is, I think, an excuse to have our favorite people every night during the entire year. But how do you see it in practical terms? Who wants to start there?
I can go.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I think in the most practical terms, you can ask yourself the question, what is the objective of the work I'm doing, right? So in business today, like in companies, that traditionally the objective of the work that I'm doing is the work product, right? Like my boss comes to me, he says, put the spreadsheet together. And so he really cares about, the objective is you get me the spreadsheet by 5 p.m. today. Whereas we have a chance now to kind of turn it around and say that the primary objective of my work is actually not the work product. The primary objective of my work is for me to be happier and more fulfilled in my life than I was when I started. And I'm using this spreadsheet assignment, right, that my boss has given me to do that, right, to transcend and get, more deeply connected with myself. And so that's a very practical way. It's a major mindset shift, right? Because today we're also focused on the material thing. I need to get the presentation done. I need to get this done. And it's like, there's an old Zen saying, right? Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water, right? We do the same things. It's just that we're approaching them differently. And so I think that from a practical standpoint, that's the best way. What better legacy, Dr. Kiko, you blew my mind when you said immortality, because I was actually just thinking about that. What greater legacy than to teach people actually how to be immortal? Because that's what we're talking about here, actually, is that's what this whole thing is, to recognize who you really are and who I really am.
Thank you, Deb. I really like this conversation, and we are just starting. Then, Kiko, Dominique, do you want to give your...
Dominique goes first.
Okay.
Sure. Sure. I think one of the most important things, and I'm going to speak on a very personal level in my world, is connections. I've mentioned that word before, and I think that in order to connect deeply with others, we have to be connected to ourselves. So you asked about that the importance of the internal aspect of legacy, and I think there's that sense of deep self-connection. And then how concretely in practice legacy turns out in my world certainly is through the connections that I'm making with others, between others, and the way that I approach people. I think in any business, at the end of the day, we're wanting to create impact, and we don't create impact with the product. I think, Dev, you're absolutely right. The product is a result of the connections and the humanity behind every single person that's actually made that product. So to me, legacy really starts with how do we connect with others, and how do we care for them? How do we make sure that we support those who work with us, for us in our companies? If we're leaders, how do we make sure that we offer opportunities for them to expand? How do we create even more leaders so that others can then come and create more connections? I think to me that's the way legacy shows up certainly in my business, in the way that I work and in practice.
Thank you. I like that vision very much also. And I will come with another question in seconds after hearing Kiko. Please, Kiko.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's a great question, because practical means different things to different people. And I think that we are trying to redefine the conversation, right? And I always remember, if, say, I give a talk about something and it connects these ideas of human flourishing, then people come to me, I mean, consultants come to me after the talk and say, how do I make this practical? And it's like, well, it couldn't be more practical. Now it's up to you to decide what you do with that. But one of the things that I like also as a topic is this idea of leadership, another massive, well of definitions and experiences. And I've always said that the goal of being a leader is to leave a positive, lasting legacy in whatever you touch, whether it's the business itself, the organization, the group, the team, leaving that positive, lasting legacy. So I think entrepreneurs could think that they are leaders, obviously, and they want to leave a positive, lasting legacy through their business. But as my colleagues have said really well, it's not what you do. Many times it's why you do it, who you do it with, even how you do it before you actually have a beautiful product that you can sell. But I also want us to be careful not taking this conversation to a place that sounds super elevated when, people are struggling to just make a dollar or any kind of currency. And so I guess I would personally summarize it as, this is about people. And if you can help someone flourish, either through what you make or through how you touch their lives, you can be an educator, you can be someone collecting trash, it doesn't matter. If you can think about the people you're impacting, I think that we somehow are reframing the conversation, even though at the end of the day, you have to chop that wood.
Sure, that's true. And well, you were mentioning that topic of relations, connections, creating with others, and by coincidence, we met each of you because of a community where we belong. I mean, it's interesting because that was exactly the way how we met each one of you. And I would like to ask, the companies per se are a community. If you know how to create the correct culture inside of it, they can create bonds, they can create, and this is basically what we are trying also to create here. We want a Latino or Hispanic business owners to start joining forces to do the things better, to create, but it's not always easy to join forces and to create community. Then I would like to ask you, what do you recommend, or how from your experience, do you recommend people to consider communities as a part of their lives, and how to start?
I'm happy to start with this. Absolutely recommend communities, especially, I'm sure we have many who are solopreneurs too, not just entrepreneurs. And I think it can be ever so lonely to start something. So 100% recommend communities, whether it's, joining an incubator, whether it's joining a community like Rosario, the community that you and I met through, called Dreamers and Doers, which is a fantastic group of women coming together to support each other. And I think where to get started is really start thinking about what are my needs in this moment? Do I need advice in building my business? Do I need connections to help me create a new program or a new product? Or so really start to think what are your needs in the moment, and then look at the different communities that exist. And the other thing I'd say is, if you can, talk to people who are part of these communities so that you know whether you'll get what you need from them. I think no one in the world, I think, can do it alone. There's that saying, it takes a village, and I think it's finding the right people from to create your own village that's really, really important, and taking the time to create those meaningful connections, getting to know people. It's not about, oh, how can this person help me, or what can I get from them? It's like, who is this person? Let me be curious about them and understand whether they're the sort of person I actually want in my life, not just as a business person. So I'm going to stop here because I could go on and on, but I think communities are such an important part of creating a business. Absolutely.
Yes, thank you. And I also want to hear Dev and Kiko. But before hearing Dev, I want to tell the audience that with Dev we met because he was creating a community. He created a community itself. And Dev, please, your opinion around that.
The community, yeah. Yeah, you know, my thought on community is if you already are an entrepreneur and you have a business, why not think of that business as a community of individuals who are coming together to support each other on their life journeys through work. The work is what it brings them together. There's a lot of people hear this and they say, oh no, I understand all that. That all sounds great, but we still have to, like, you know, I still got to get my spreadsheet out on time. So yeah, all that's happening. It's just we're changing the approach on how. We're moving from calling it a business where there's all kinds of non-community types of activities that go on, right? That we see, you know, there's so much backbiting, so much cutthroat, so much all this stuff. And those types of things actually just hold the business back, right? I mean, we'll all agree. Whenever we do that, that's holding us back from our fullest potential. And so if we can truly create a business that is a community, right, of people who are coming together, it actually unleashes the creative potential in the business. And the legacy is actually in the fact that you're changing people's lives, right? Not resumes, you're changing their lives.
Thank you. I love that. Kiko, please.
Yeah, I love that too. I think that both of my colleagues are really inspiring. I'm going to just go to bed thinking that this was worth for me 100%. The same way that Dev said now, that think of a business as a community, and you know, I've heard many times that if you are an employee, you can think of yourself as an entrepreneur, right? Which is kind of interesting because sometimes we think that the entrepreneur is the Elon Musk and everybody else is not. And I think you can be as entrepreneurial, and until you're ready to jump, because for some of us this is a difficult topic, right? I was raised in a multinational when I was 20 something, and that gave me community. I didn't even have to work for it, right? Now I have to do more work. But the other thing that I think community brings, and Dominique said this also beautifully, is, you know, I remember when you start, it's like so lonely, and at the same time, you can do things that you didn't expect that you could do, which is satisfying, even the little things, right? I have a green screen behind me. I never thought I could have a green screen behind me. So I guess the point is, when you talk to other people like you in similar circumstances, it's better than AA. It's better than Alcohólicos Anónimos. It's like Entrepreneurs Anonymous. It's like, here is what I'm suffering. And I've seen that working, and it's magical. In very small businesses, I'm talking about taco truck type of entrepreneur. And what they got out of community was immense. And so I love what Deb said. You know, if you think of your business as a community, you are a community creator by definition. People come to that place to have food. They have a common purpose at that moment. And all of a sudden you are creating some sort of magic. But when you meet with your peers and you hear the same issues and what they don't know and their fears and being an imposter and all these things, is when you basically relieve that burden and say, oh man, finally I can hear someone that understands what I'm doing. So it's such an important thing. And I want to commend you and Felipe for doing this kind of work, because it's so needed, especially with small companies. So needed.
Thank you, Kiko. The reality is that for us is completely the opposite. We are so grateful that we have all of you and the other mentors helping us to make this a reality. And at the end, helping our community or giving tools, because it's not help. It's just that we are giving them tools. We are showing them ways to do things. And each of you are really helping and giving those tools and empowering them to know how to build in the following times. And from there, I want to take advantage, because in some ways, when we were selecting our mentors, we were thinking in people who can inspire our participants for something. Then each one of you has in our mind a reason why we think you are inspiring, and also role models. And I want to jump into the role models topic, because I think it's very important. Younger generations are always looking for ways to do more, but if they don't have role models, for sure it will be very difficult. I mean, even I didn't start in technology younger, because I never met somebody who was a woman developing. You know, then what do you think that is important in terms of entrepreneurship and role modeling? Because I know all of you are doing things that are like frontiering with role modeling. Then please give me your thoughts. Who want to? Dominique?
I'm happy to. I want to pick up on something that you shared, Kiko, a second ago, which I think is so important to bring up, and I think is a good place to bring up now in terms of what to do. You know, as I don't consider myself a role model, but thank you for using that word. But Kiko, you mentioned you know, the imposter syndrome, the fear, all of that, and I think one of the ways that we can help each other as entrepreneurs, as solopreneurs, is actually to share those fears and to share them out loud and to say, you know what, every day I feel like an imposter. Every day I wonder, you know, who am I to be doing this? And who am I for people to be listening to me? And so, and I think it ties also that fear, that feeling into legacy. Because often then we think, well, who am I to be building this, and to think that I'm, you know, that I've got something to share with the world. And actually every single one of us, as we've shared so many times on this call, has an incredible story to share. And if you are feeling imposter syndrome, if you're feeling the fear, what it means really is that you're doing something new. You're doing something you haven't done before. You're growing and you're becoming a new person. Who wouldn't want to share that, right? And I think reframing that fear, reframing that imposter syndrome, and allowing ourselves to tell the story of when we felt that way is a really good way actually to support each other as entrepreneurs. No one's got it. No one knows what they're doing. We're all, you know, we're going for it. And like Deb said, we don't control the outcome. We do what we can, and we see what happens.
Thank you, Deb.
Yeah, so on role models, I would encourage people to ask themselves, you know, who is your role model, right? And I mean, in entrepreneurs, in the world of entrepreneurship, right, traditional role models are all people like, you know, the Elon Musks and the Bill Gates and all those kinds of people, right? And just would ask you to kind of consider, are any of those people any happier than you right now? Really is the question that we all should be asking ourselves of any role model, right? Because we think that because they've achieved some sort of status and have some amount of money and have whatever, right, billions and trillions of dollars, right, that they're somehow happier than us. And most of the time, as we know, actually, not only are they not happier than us, they are some of the most miserable people on the planet, which is part of the reason why we have what we have right now. That's a whole nother kind of topic. But, you know, I think kind of rethinking who are our role models, you know, Elon Musk versus the Buddha, for example, right? I mean, like who is, and that's just an example. You can pick anybody, you know, who do you envision as being somebody who has it together, is very happy, regardless of what's going on, you know, nothing can shake their peace. That's truly what we all want, isn't it? And that's why we're chasing all this, build this big business, go help this, like all that stuff. It's for the rush of what I'm talking about, you know, bliss, happiness, contentment, peace. These are the things that we're after. And so the question is my role model somebody who exhibits those characteristics and tendencies, or my role model, you know, somebody who is so tied to material things, right? And whose happiness is so tied to those material things, right? Is that really what I want to be? So that's the question I would ask around role models.
I love that. Thank you. That Kiko. Please.
Yeah, and that requires redefining success, because we have this peer pressure from society of what success looks like, and I think my colleagues are just hitting this right on. Nobody, when it was Mother's Day in the US the other day, and there was one meme that I really, really loved that said something like, "Life doesn't come with a book, comes with a mother." And so, but it's profound, because no matter what, you're going to need those relationships, right? You were brought here to be human. Now, yes, you were brought here to suffer. It's a good portion of it. But we have this capacity to look for happiness. And so, even if you have a business that, might not sound so Tesla type, as long as you are true to yourself and you're making money, because, that's part of doing a business. Otherwise, you would do something different. But if you figure out a way to make money, it doesn't have to be the best in the world and make you the richest person in the world. You are already fulfilling your own destiny by bringing yourself in a capacity to help others. You're paying your bills, you're sending your kids to college, or whatever it is that your goal is. But at the end of the day, that's why I think entrepreneurship is beautiful, because you can create around it. It has a lot of other, penas, right? Pain associated with it. But this ability to create from a different place, right? This ability to be yourself. I remember when I was doing some helping people find jobs, right? In a portion of my career coaching is a portion of my business. And, if I'm successful, I lose a client because they got a job. And you cannot imagine how happy I am to lose clients because I know that they are reaching the point of success on their own. I help them a little bit, but it's them. And so it makes me so happy. So, back to this idea, I think a role model, if I had to find a role model, I would just find someone that is happy, that is not necessarily super rich, that is connected to their roots, and that is very human.
Thank you, Kiko. Yes, no, and I love all the things that you were mentioning are resonating with many of the conversations that we were having in the last days. And even when we were talking about this is like a more general topic, because of course it's connected with all the areas of entrepreneurship. And all the other panels were more specific around financing, around social networks, relations, and so forth. I want to jump there to ask, and Gladys Ochoa is asking if peers are the key to create community. Do you think, and I want to connect the two things with going back, just not to leave this question, to that creation of community and all the other people who are the members of the community. How do you think this works?
I'll take this one for a second, and then I'm going to let my colleague.
No, go ahead.
Because I mentioned peers, and I think Gladys was listening. And thank you, Gladys. That was the only good thing that I said.
Sorry,
so,
Gladys is joining us from New Jersey.
So
go ahead.
But I'm not sure that anybody are the key. Anybody specifically is the key to that. But unquestionably, peers add a lot of value. Even before competition came collaboration, and it will always be. So, there's enough for everyone. I'm not saying you don't have to compete. You have to learn how to compete. You have to learn how to market. You have to learn how to budget. You have to learn all these things, right? That's your knowledge part. That's awesome. But peers will give you perspective. And when you have perspective, you have a huge advantage. I guarantee you that you spend one night over drinks with 3 people that are doing something similar to you, not exactly the same, something similar to you. You're gonna gain perspective in ways that no one else can add. Well, that's my 2 cents. And Gladys, thanks for listening.
Thank you, Jess. Gladys is one of our participants, and she's joining from New York. Yes. Dominique, Deb, do you want to add something on that question?
Yeah, so I would say, Gladys, that the key to the community is actually you. And why do I say that? Because if you show up as your authentic self, who you truly are, everybody is going to love you. And so everybody will come to you, and you'll be the nexus of the community. And that's true for all of us, of course, right? That when we are the key. Who's the key? It's not someone else creating community. It's me creating community.
We're the key.
Right? It's you. It's you for you and me for me, and all of us.
I love that, Deb. Well said.
Me too. I'm completely and also because
my kids think I'm crazy.
You probably are, but that's okay.
I know. I lost
And also,
my mind.
everyone's kids think they're
said,
crazy.
Good praise.
I had a teacher who said, it's good that you lost your mind, because where does doubt live? Doubt lives in the mind, Okay, good.
I love that. Dom, I don't know if you have something to add there.
No, I think
Okay, otherwise I will
perfectly.
take a point that came to my mind because of this situation and conversation, and it's authenticity of leaders and the authenticity of people who is really building a legacy. Because of course, it's not, I'm a Latina, I have an accent, I have my style, whatever. But of course, the day that I took out the labels and the things that we're supposed to have to be building something, I'm not an engineer, but I built a technology company. Then how did you think around that? Because the 3 of you are very authentic, and each one of you is really who you are. And I would like you to give that conversation into the table. Who wants to start? And well, I will add something else, maybe to create a provocation, an additional provocation, and is when I met Dev for the first time, or I saw his title, it was a monk, a corporate monk as a title. And of course, that can show that he's very authentic. He was creating something different, and that made me curious for sure. Then I would like to bring this just to create a conversation. Hearing you, please.
Come on, Dominique.
I'm happy. I'm happy to say something here.
Go ahead, please.
I'm going to be very quick on this, but I think as we're thinking about building a business and entrepreneurship, I think that if you're not being yourself, you cannot succeed. I think people know. I think your products know. I think everything, plant, inanimate object, person can feel it, and it probably is not going to work. And it's not to say that you need to decide who you are and be. I think it's just in ourselves, how we show up in the world. I think it's a necessity to just be who we are in order to build something of value that others will benefit from, that we can truly share with others. That I think that's the most important thing to me, is that if you're not you're not going to build something that others will want.
Yeah, and building on what Dom said, ultimately, if you think about it, do you do better work when you're happy, or do you do better work when you're unhappy, right? And so if you make, it's a pretty obvious answer, right? When we're happy, those are when we get into these flow states, right? Everybody knows about flow states. And so, what that then does is it places the importance of getting happy on the inside, right, at the highest level, because then once you do that, then you can be far more effective, right, in what you're doing in your day job.
Thank you, Deb. Yeah. Kiko.
Yeah, this conversation about authenticity is a difficult one, because I don't know. I don't know if we are authentic, even in the biggest expression of it, which is entrepreneurship. It's a hard one for me. I'm not sure if I would be in business. If I were completely authentic, I would not charge for my services, because I just want to give. But I have to, because I have to live.
We need to live.
And so there are some motions in there that and this is me talking. I'm not questioning anybody else. I'm questioning myself. Am I really truly being authentic by creating a business that does X, Y, Z, when maybe what I should have done is create another nonprofit? But to be honest with you, I didn't see that as a good path. And so you have to live your reality in that regard. Your obligations, you have to pay your bills, and you have to eat every day, and that's part of being authentic. Dev suggested, when you ask the group for books, he suggested Man in Search of Meaning. And if you can read that book, read it, because that is the ultimate testament of someone that had something to give. It was all taken away, and he just kept going. And the reason, this idea of meaning that he talks so much, and he created a therapy around it, Viktor Frankl, it's just living your life, right? And so connecting with authenticity, if you can live happy, if you can establish those connections, if you can just be yourself more than in another setting, you have to understand that with this level of expression, of free expression, comes a lot of responsibility and a lot of other things that are not given to you, right? Entrepreneurship is the jungle, and a corporation is just the reserve. So you can be very entrepreneurial in the reserve, but someone feeds you at the end of the day. And real entrepreneurship is the jungle. Either you hunt or you die. So, that level of authenticity, right? You have to be somehow going after that prey. It's just too hard for me, especially, right? So that's why for me, entrepreneurship, even though it's the closest thing to being me, it really truly isn't, because I would love to give all this for free.
Well, that's a good point. You are also giving us the mirror, because when we started this incubator, everybody was asking us, but how it is free? I mean, why you are giving this for free, this program? And the reality was, well, because we have a network of possible mentors who are helping us with time. And that's why you are here. Then for sure you are in some way helping to build and so forth, because of your free time and knowledge. And that's amazing. And from there, I would like to ask you, if you should think in somebody who is like that type of role model that is interesting to see as an entrepreneur, building something that is really interesting, meaningful, who you think could be a person to follow if our entrepreneurs want to follow somebody who is building something valuable? I don't mean that I know this is difficult because in some cases we have many people who is doing really interesting things. But in order to give ideas of people to follow, or read the biography of somebody who is not alive, who would you recommend to follow for understanding the legacy concept in the practice?
Follow Rosario and Felipe. That's an easy one.
I was going to say the same.
So much. But thank you, Noel. But that's not it. This is not advertising, but no, thank you.
No. I mean, why do we have to look for, it just reminds me of the conversation that I had one day. My ex-wife was into politics, and she was trying to appeal to a bunch of people that vote in caucuses. Not only I was not into politics, but I was not even on the same side of politics. So this whole event was crazy for me, or many of those. But I remember this guy that came to me, and it started to be a little difficult. And we started talking about leadership, a topic that I love. And the guy started to talk about leaders in terms of, statesmanship, right? It has to be either a president or a king. And I said, no, leaders are everywhere. I disagree with you completely. We have this concept that leadership is, the president of a government. No, leaders are nurses and teachers and all of us in our life. So, when you ask me who to follow, I would say find someone that inspires you in your community close to you, instead of just thinking about these kind of dreamy celebrities, because they're not going to bring anything to you. But, that's me. I mean,
I love that.
And so when I say Rosario and Felipe, I mean it.
Thank you very much. Our honor.
I love that, Kiko, and I couldn't agree more. And actually, Rosario and Felipe were my immediate thought as well. So totally on the same page there. As you were talking, Kiko, because when Rosario asked the question, it was really hard for me to think of an answer on the spot. And as you were talking and you said, think about people who are close in your communities, I thought of the person who founded the community that Rosario and I met through, Geisha. And she is such an inspiring woman, and she built this incredible community for all of us. And she's someone who's very accessible. She's someone that I can look up to and that I know is a real person, right? She's not your Elon Musk. She's not all these people. She's a real person. She's right there. And thank you, Rosario, for putting her name in the chat, because if I think following someone who is inspirational, that would be a great example. So I appreciate your comment, Kiko. Thank you.
Thank you. Deb.
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo what my colleague said here. Really, it's about finding someone who has found that happiness, right? I mean, that's really. I mean, ultimately, I say it again. What we're after. What are we after on all this stuff that we're doing here? Every single thing that you do in your life, right? If you just kind of trace it back, why are you doing it? It's in some way, shape, or form. It's because I think if I do this, I'm going to be happier, right? So can I find someone as a role model who has found that? Not because they built a $1 trillion company, because none of those people, at least that I know of, right, have really found it. They're a little bit different and harder to find than that, right? And you got to seek those people out. And I would say those are, and this is just me after 20 years, because I did it for 20 years, right? I chased all of that thinking just like most of us, right? That like, hey, I just get one more project, right? I get the next big project in my consulting business, hire the next person. That's what I'm going to feel contented. And it just never came. So part of the way that I came to that realization was I had these role models, right? Who all of a sudden helped me to open my own eyes, because they didn't give me anything. They just helped me recognize what I already had.
Thank you.
And now after today, we have a real monk as a role model. Man, that is something. I thought they were only in the books.
And I also should confess that when all this COVID situation started and so forth, Deb was creating some calls with people to help us and be together, meditating online from different parts of the world. And it's just that is not just the talk, it's also the real action of it. And I'm grateful for that, because of course with the three of you, we know that you mean what you are telling the people. And that's, well, and I want to ask you something else. Within the network of mentors in our incubator, we have more than 60 people who is top people, very good humans, excellent professionals, but the majority of them are Latinos. And the three of you are very few of the no-Latinos. And I want to ask you, when we invited you, because we are very clear on why we invited each one of you, but why you decided to say yes when we invited you? Who wants to start?
I guess everybody wants to start.
Please.
That's an easy one because it connects, for me, it connects everything that my colleagues have said today. One, you are the person that connects us all and who we trust too, to make sure that we are all in a group of people that can get together and be happy. So in this, I think there's community, there's connection, there's happiness. And, why wouldn't you say no? I have to say, today, I had, my kids during the week. I have them a couple of days a week. And I told them I have this thing, and the mom agreed to take them so I could just be part of this. And I don't regret a second of it. I love my kids. I love them with passion. This is the time that I have with them. And as a father, there could be probably nothing else you would change it for, except something like this. And it was better. Now I have three. Well, I already had you as a role model, but now Dev and Dominique are my role models, and I'm gonna follow them. So you made my day. It's an easy yes.
Thank you. Dominique, Deb, do you want to add something? Why?
Yes.
Please.
I mean, of course, the easy answer and the true first answer that comes to mind is you and Felipe. I think anything that you are involved in, I want to be a part of because I admire you guys so much. So that's number one answer. And the second answer is I mentioned, I started my business 4 years in this country, zero network. Not like all I knew were people from a school that I worked at and my boyfriend and a couple of friends. Like that's it. And without finding people who helped me and who supported me and who mentored me, I would be nowhere near where I am today. And when you came to me with this opportunity to help people who are building their business and to be a mentor for them, it was a no-brainer because you have to pay it forward. And so that's the main, I think, after you, that's the number two main reason for saying yes.
Thank you, Dominique. No, it is our honor, really. Deb, please.
Yeah, so I would say in addition, obviously, to you and Felipe Rosario, for me, earlier I talked about external purpose and internal purpose, right? So my external purpose in this world is to bring this message, right, to the business world that there's a totally different way that we can go about doing things, and we don't have to actually, it doesn't require any new cash investment, no CapEx, no investment in the cloud, none of that. It's changing the objective of what we're doing, right? Which is for us to get more deeply. You're not, I always give the example, if you're giving a presentation, I say, what are you doing? In the conventional world, you would say, I'm giving a presentation and I'm feeling a little nervous. In this new world that I'm talking about, you would say, I am working through my nervousness by giving a presentation. So the objective, right, is different. And so bringing this message, right, to the business community, I think is really, really important, because when we bring this message to the business community, we can transform what we're doing. It actually will change everything around us, because we've gone from the focus being money, 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 more money, more, right, to being about fulfillment, and fulfillment of the people who have come together as a community in that business. And what it'll do is it'll actually lead to even greater prosperity, right? As every great philosopher around the world has ever taught us. So that's my passion in the external world, and that's why I came here. And I appreciate, Rosario, you creating the opportunity for that.
No. Thank you. We are we are grateful because he's not only creating these conversations and for sure in real time is few people the ones who are seeing us, but then we are keeping it running and running and running and running and expanding the message to people who is like, let's say Gladys, because we saw Gladys in the panel, Gladys thinking this will be useful and could be really cool for this other friend, for this other entrepreneur. And this is part of that objective also. That's why these questions matter. And of course, as Dominique was mentioning, arriving into the US or into any market, if you are an entrepreneur, without a network, without the previous experience in that environment, when you have a network and you can be part of a real community who really wants to see you succeed, that's completely different. No, and that's really meaningful. And well, time is running, and I just want to have two more things. The first is for the people hearing us today, what will be the advice that you will give them, like as a let's say takeaway from the conversation? What could be that point that you should underline from this conversation when they will hear this again? Dominique, if you want to start.
Sure. I think what I will take away is that idea of internal shift before external shift, and ensuring that you are showing up as who you want to be in order to build your business. The second thing, can I have more than one?
Please go ahead.
The second thing I'll take away is connection, and making sure that we connect with others and with ourselves. And the third one, I think I'll add from hearing Dev's and Kiko's journeys, I think, and mine as well, I think it's remembering that legacy and building our business, it doesn't happen in a day. You know, there's a great story, and I'll be very quick of, you know, imagine Picasso, and he's sitting in a cafe and he's drawing on a napkin, and a woman comes and she says, "I would love to buy this napkin for $10,000." And he says, "Madam, this is $8 million. And she says, "But it took you 10 minutes to draw it on a napkin." He says, "It took me a lifetime to learn how to do it." And I think that's how it is. It's remembering that legacy and building our business just doesn't happen in a day. It's a process, and we're all still learning.
I love that. Thank you. Dev, please.
Yeah, you know, I would just reiterate that if you just think about it, what you're after is true inner contentment in your life. And, you know, if you can keep that in mind in whatever you're doing, the work that you're doing, whether it's in your business or outside of your business, right? Anywhere you're taking any action, right? In this field of action that we live in, that's the goal, right? It's not whatever I'm doing in the material. I'm using what I'm doing in the material realm to get to that goal. And so if we can keep that goal in mind, then slowly from there, all of the actions that we'll be taking will be moving toward that goal. And then you reach a place of what it is said to be is permanent happiness. Nothing can shake you.
Thank you, Dev. That's a lesson for sure. Kiko, please.
Yeah, I'll just mention this idea that entrepreneurs are leaders, and the world needs your leadership. So, you know, be very confident that path you've chosen is the right path. Comes with a lot of complications, but if you can do what my colleagues have said, and you can build that community, and you can be happy and content, then there's nothing better. It's the best possible expression of yourself. And as I said before, you have a great opportunity to leave a positive, lasting legacy.
Thank you. I love that. And I would like to ask you, what do you recommend for our audience to read, or movies or books? What do you recommend for them to nourish them in terms of that legacy that they should build? Who wants to start? Dominique, sorry, or Dev.
Sure. I mean, Kiko talked about mine earlier, but I would recommend Man's Search for Meaning by Dr. Viktor Frankl. You know, you summed it up really well, Kiko, but you know, what I would basically just add is, you know, here's a story. The basic gist is, you know, it's a story of a man who watched his family die in Auschwitz in a concentration camp. And, you know, he realized going through this process, I think he was there for 6 years or so, he realized that, you know, the ultimate human freedom that cannot be taken away, no matter what. You could be, you know, living in a skyscraper in downtown San Francisco, or you could be, you know, in a concentration camp. The ultimate human freedom that cannot be taken away is the freedom to choose how I react and respond in a situation. And that secret that he found, you know, through this horrific, you know, kind of a process and set of circumstances really opened up, you know, his own life to enormous possibilities, right? When he got out. And then as Kiko mentioned earlier, he actually developed a whole therapy around it. But the core message is one that we can all take away, right? Whether or not we do that specific therapy, it's this empowering message that, you know, has a lot of gravitas from somebody who, you know, spent time in such terrible conditions.
Yes, completely. And that topic of the possibility to choose what you want, how you react, and that's life. Basically, somebody was telling the other day that it's not how you are, where the environment where you are, but how you are reacting to it. No? You know, the potato or the egg in boiling water. One is softer and the other is stronger after it. Then is how you decide to react. Well, thank you. Dominique, Kiko, who wants to follow? Dom, please.
Mine is very, very different. And I chose a book by Dave Trott. It's called 1 + 1 = 3. And actually, I recommend any of his books to anyone who's an entrepreneur. And the reason I chose this is Dave Trott is actually an advertising guy. He writes these really short stories. He also has a blog. You can check out his blog. And what I love about them is that there's always a push to help people think in a different way. There's always a little thing in the story that you'll read and you'll think, how can I do this in my own unique, different approach? And the reason I chose that is often when suddenly I think about legacy, I think about the people who have inspired me, the people who have done things differently or in their own way. And so I'm hoping that by grabbing this book and just reading one story once in a while, you might have a little insight of, maybe I should try something slightly different and see how that works. So that's why I chose that book.
I love that. And for the audience, we are sharing the information of the books in the chat, but we also will include them into the information for the video when people is seeing, not in real life. Kiko, please go ahead.
Yeah, and my choice was very different from who I am, because I would never be able to be Jack Welch ever. So if you remember, Jack Welch was the former CEO of General Electric, and I couldn't do that. I don't have that type of spirit or soul. But the book is called Control Your Destiny or Someone Else Will. And what's interesting is it talks about the transformation of a company. And it's basically the main message of the book is change or die. And now we don't have the tools or the size of those companies in front of us. But as entrepreneurs, I think it's a very interesting story, because of course, he didn't do it single-handedly, but he believed in transformation, introduced some processes that were new at the time that were pretty innovative. And he helped a company that was about to, be completely down, to revive the spirit. And not everything there is something that I would personally do, but I think it's a great reading for entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Kiko. No, and just before closing, I want to ask each one of you, if people want to follow you, connect with you, where they can find you. And Dominique, please, where people can find you.
The best way to find me is probably LinkedIn, Dominique Mas. There aren't that many of me. And then I think that's the best way to find me. LinkedIn.
Great. We are also sharing these social networks in the chat, then people can follow. But please, Deb, where can people find you? You are mute.
Sorry about that. I made it almost to the end, right? Without messing it up, but I'm the one who messed it up. So I'm taking a little bit of a break from social media right now. So although I'm on LinkedIn, right, I might be, if you reach out there, I might not get it. So I would just say my email is good for now. If Rosario, you want to either supply now or supply later, or, you know.
We can copy that in the chat later on. And thank you. And before going to Kiko, I want to re-ask you something. Because of that, you mentioned you are out of the social networks now. And I would love you to tell people why.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, you know, I'm on a bit of a sabbatical right now. You know, Rosario mentioned that I had this project, right, that we were working on actually together about, you know, a year and a half ago. And, you know, I kind of decided that I have a series of just ailments, you know, health ailments. I suffer from lower back pain and a bunch of things for my whole life. And I came to this realization about 6 months ago that I had gone to all the Western medicine doctors, shown it to, you know, orthopedics, this, that, PT, MRIs, bone scans, nothing. There's nothing in the physical body. So it became very clear to me that it has nothing to do with that, right? And so I'm going on this quest now to basically heal myself from all of these ailments that I've had using exclusively yoga, meditation, and pranayama, which is a breathing system, right, from India. And I'm making really good progress, but I actually call this time of my life the hospital. I say I checked myself into the hospital, and the treatments that I'm doing have a very rigorous, you know, schedule of, you know, meditation, pranayama. It's like 8 to 10 hours a day, right, that I'm doing of all this stuff. And it's just been a fascinating journey into myself and just, you know, kind of experiencing what the power of the mind can be. And so as part of that, I just elected to, you know, I'm on Instagram a little bit, where we have an Instagram where we had a small project that we were working on that every now and then I'll get on Instagram, but everything else I'm pretty much out. And I'll tell you what, guys, it's, I mean, not surprising. We've all read articles on this, right? It's awesome. It's so great, like being off of it for a little while.
I know, and I underline that because I want to thank, of course, this is a gift having you in this conversation, and this also shows the relevance that this topic has to you. And that's why, thank you for sharing, because this is important also to know that this is the type of things that are the reality of a person building businesses, but also trusting in itself as a very important thing. Kiko, where people can find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the easiest way. I think I agree with Dominique. It's not difficult, and as you can see there, my link doesn't have any numbers. Thank goodness, because otherwise I wouldn't even remember it. So that's it.
Thank you, Kiko. Well, I want to say that it was very interesting. I learned a lot, and for sure, we really had fun. And I'm really happy with this. And I will tell the audience that at the end of these lives, we are taking a picture for us. But after the panels, because each panel is really cool for the speakers, not only for the audience. And this is not necessarily what's happening regularly. Then I want to thank you in my name, in the name of Felipe, in the name of Brooklyn to Bogota's community. And well, have a good night. See you next week for the people who is seeing us, for our community of entrepreneurs, and have a wonderful night and a very good end of the week. Thank you, and it's a pleasure having you.
Gracias.
Thank you so much.
Gracias.